Hey everyone, welcome to the deep dive. That guy's Ian Boyd. I'm Paul Wadlington. We're going to do a deep dive on the engine that drives Vanderbilt football, the 5-2 top 25 ranked Vanderbilt Commodores, the Bama Slayers. We're going to talk about what drives that engine. But before we do that, we want to make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Even if you hate watch us, we'll appreciate it and we'll take it. Use promo code IT1 to get 2 months for $1 at InsideTexas.com. That's where you're going to get the best, most lively, and enriching football conversation that you can handle, more than you can handle. So let's talk about Vandy's offense as the key to their success. Ian, at first blush, when you look at the raw stats, the counting stats, this is an offense averaging 363 yards per game. As you would say, they are mid if you just look at that statistic. But we try to look a little deeper in the deep dive, and we know, in fact, this is the engine that drives the Vanderbilt offense, an engine led by a talented trio of transfers. Say that fast 3 times. And that is, of course, offensive coordinator Tim Beck. No, the other one, not the one you know. Quarterback Diego Pavia and tight end Eli Stowers. Those 3 have come together to completely change Vanderbilt football. It's why they're ranked. It's why they beat Bama. It's why they beat Virginia Tech. It's why they beat Kentucky. It's why they took Missouri to overtime. It's not why they beat Georgia State, because they lost to Georgia State. And that tells you a little bit about the floor and the ceiling of Vanderbilt. So, Ian, let's talk about Vandy's offense as the key to success. And that key to success runs off an old principle called the triple option.
And also, I think it's worth noting that Diego Pavia is an instrument of God, forged to humble the SEC, or at least he said something like that after they beat Alabama.
Well, he went to Volcano High School in New Mexico, where he was a state wrestling champ. The man came out of a volcano. That's all you need to know.
Dare I risk a quick aside?
No.
Okay, I'll do it later.
Okay. The triple option, Ian.
Yep.
Again, I set you up.
The triple option. Oh, we're going right to the rules. This is going to be a chaotic show. You guys watching, you have no idea what we've been arguing about this for the last hour. Okay. We're going to talk about.
What is the triple option, Ian?
The triple option is where the quarterback has 3 choices on the play. And the traditional triple option is inside run, inside dive, quarterback running around the end, or the third option is the quarterback pitching it. And it always goes in sequence. So like this would be like a traditional veer option kind of play right here. The quarterback is reading this defensive end who's unblocked, who's within the circle. If the defensive end stays wide, he hands off to the fullback. The fullback runs downhill behind that double team. If the defensive end comes inside to stop the fullback, the quarterback pulls around, and now he reads the linebacker, who's also in the circle. If the linebacker runs up to tackle the quarterback, he pitches to the W wing back, who's running behind him as a pitch man. If the linebacker tries to stay wide to guard the pitch, the quarterback tucks it and runs inside of the linebacker for a gain.
Very good distillation of the triple option. So how is it that a Vanderbilt program that has had 6 winning seasons since 1956, they were 2-10 last year. How is it they're taking some pretty straightforward, basic old school football and putting their spin on it to drive their success on the field? And how does the University of Texas defend it? Is this a matchup, Ian, where just talent wins out, or do assignments matter?
This is a old school football 101, 201 maybe. And it's just you either pass or you fail assignment wise. I've seen a lot of teams with really talented athletes get demolished by the option because they just do the wrong thing. And then maybe you kill Stephen McGee, but Jaworski Lane is running inside untouched, or Mike Goodson is getting the pitch outside and there's nobody on him, right? Just to bring up some old ghosts.
Those aren't Vanderbilt players, Ian. Stay focused.
That's mercifully. They do have I think Diego Pavia is maybe the main ingredient.
I would agree. I
Because
think their running backs are FBS average. Their
yes.
offensive line is huge. They don't get a lot of line push, but they are pretty good at getting body on body. They're letting the scheme do a lot of the work here. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and the linemen are all like 4th, 5th, or 6th year players.
Yes.
So they're very assignment sound. They're not going to let you run free into the backfield. They make you beat blocks to beat them. That's pretty much it. Pavia, I think part of what makes him special is that he's fearless and thick when he runs between the tackles. But if you like overplay to maybe make them play outside, he's also very agile and quick around the edge. And also when he's out on the edge, he can throw on the run, and he's an extremely efficient passer.
Yeah, the thing I would say, and Diego Pavia is a guy I discovered 2 years ago because I bet, and I noticed this is a guy that when he plays, New Mexico State covers always against the spread. He's very quick-minded. He makes really quick decisions, and that's very underrated in the triple option. And if you're a Texas fan with some understanding of our lore, or maybe you're an older boomer, you know that's why James Street ultimately became the quarterback for the University of Texas running the wishbone over superior athletes ahead of him, like Dollar Bill Bradley, who went on to play in the NFL for like 13 years at safety. But Bill Bradley didn't have that quick processing that James Street did. And that's ultimately one of the keys to making this work. It's not just about your pure raw athleticism. So, Ian, you have some rules for the triple option. And we want to talk about those because the classic rules are your AB defenders cover the dive. Your C defender covers the quarterback. Your C gap defender, I should say. And then your force, usually a secondary player, sometimes a linebacker, is the guy that covers the pitch. How that plays out and how defenses assign those roles can really have big effects on the success of this option. So talk to me about your rules for the triple option.
That's actually how my rules work. That's what they arrive at. But if Connor, if you can pull them up really quickly, when you are playing in a 4-down defensive front, the key is so like when you're in a 4-down front, teams usually have a nose and a 3 technique, and a good option team worth its salt like Vanderbilt has flexibility to run the ball to either side. And so what you don't want is for them to run at the side where you are disadvantaged unless you have clear rules. So the rules are if you're the unblocked defensive end that's being optioned and you have a 3 technique defensive tackle inside of you in the B gap, then you play the quarterback like Paul said. And then it just becomes a basic inside running play and they're having to run a dive into your 3 technique, that's good. That's maybe they can do it, maybe they can't. But if you're Texas, you feel pretty good about stopping basic inside zone type dive plays with the other team trying to double team Vernon Broughton and climb up to Anthony Hill or whoever. But if they run it to the other side and the defensive end does not have a defensive tackle in the B gap inside of him, then you cannot let them run the dive there because there's a uncovered guard and they're just going to maul you downhill. So the defensive end needs to step as far inside as he needs to for the quarterback to give the ball away or otherwise for the ball to spill outside. And then the linebacker outside of him has to see that happening and get outside.
So to clarify for folks who are not as familiar with this, the defensive end in both instances in these 2 examples is unblocked. They are being optioned, which is where we come up with the name. And that's where the advantage of the offense is. Not only do you get the extra man advantage of the quarterback as a runner, you're actually pointing to a member of the defense and saying, we're not going to block you. And that's going to allow us to double team and account for other defenders play side and allow us to run the ball based on your behavior. We're going to have a preset set of decisions. Just like Mike Leach's Air Raid 1.0, the defense, by their alignment and their behaviors, can actually force the ball to go to certain players.
Yes.
The key is you better make damn sure you can tackle that player and that you have a good position and good leverage. Is that fair?
100%. Connor, go ahead and give me my diagrams really quick.
Ooh, lot going on.
So on this instance, Vanderbilt is in a pistol, and they choose to run the ball at a nose tackle, and they leave the jack edge, unblocked. Because the jack edge does not have a defensive tackle and the gap inside of him, when he's unblocked, he needs to crash inside to stop the running back dive. That should, maybe the quarterback misreads it and he hands it off and then the jack just tackles the running back for a loss. That'd be great. Probably Pavia's not going to do that.
He's going to
pull the ball around the edge where he has the lead blocker for the Sam. The Mike linebacker, Anthony Hill, has to recognize that his end is stepping inside and get outside. If he does, Texas has a 2-for-1 on the blocker, and they have a guy in either gap, and it should be stopped. If he doesn't, disaster, and your safeties have to clean it up.
So people say this all the time, but we should play aggressive on defense. Aggression within rules is the key to stopping the option.
Yeah.
So if Anthony Hill sees that double team and just fires straight downhill, Ian, what's Diego Pavia going to do around that corner?
Unspeakable things.
Yes, he will have a bunch of green in front of him, and you're praying that field safety can recover and make the tackle 18 yards down the field.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, if the mic doesn't scrape at the appropriate angle, right, outside, what if he goes too wide? What if he's runs he runs straight down the line of scrimmage?
Yeah.
Now he's faced up on a superior, quicker athlete who's got a better change of direction. Well, let's say in terms of change of direction. And he's on the move, and the quarterback's on the move, and the quarterback knows where he's going or where he wants to go. That's also bad. But if you get the proper angle here, and Ian did a good job on the diagram, you're going to meet that quarterback right as he's basically coming to that power alley. And then he's going to have to make a decision, isn't he?
Yep. And then there's another way to play this that asks less of Anthony Hill.
Yes.
And it's a way that I've seen PK play the option when he faced Rich Rodriguez back at Washington. Yep. And that is, if the team were running the option at the tackle, the 3 technique on the bottom, then the B is always in contain. It's very simple. But if he runs it up here at this nose, then by rules, the jack needs to step inside. Unless you tell your nose, hey, if they run the option in your direction, you go get in the B gap. And if you do that, your jack can still play contain. Pavia looks, the jack is in contain. He's like, I can't get outside the jack. He's way out there. He has the angle on me. I have to hand off. Now you hand off, and Anthony Hill is just racing downhill into it. And it's a lot simpler.
So one thing to also know about the option, any man can be optioned. So just as your defense has rules, their offense has rules. And what they actually don't teach, at least good teachers of the option, they don't repeatedly just say the defensive end, the defensive end, the defensive end. What they'll say is the first unblocked enemy jersey. Here's what we're doing. Right? And so you could theoretically leave the nose tackle unblocked here. You could option him. You could option the S, the Sam linebacker, up at the top of the screen, right? You could motion in a tight end play side at the last second, and you could block everyone play side, and you make the Sam the option guy. So it's very important your defense understand the principles of what's being done to them. Because if they do, you actually can shut this thing down, especially if you have a superior, talented defense. If you don't, it gets real ugly.
I will interject though that I don't know that, like, if you're playing Army, then something that I've laid out that's very simple is insufficient, because Army, this is all they do. So they have a million ways to screw up your rules and make different guys do different things. I don't know that Vanderbilt actually has that much versatility to how they run option, because a lot of their secondary offense is direct quarterback runs.
Yes.
I think they have a few traditional running back runs and pass game. They have a lot of pass game too.
Well said. So if we're trying to think of this conceptually, Vanderbilt is option 1.5.0. Army's 4.0. So if Vanderbilt introduces something to this game, it will be a thing.
Right.
Like a change-up. It's not going to be 6 change-ups because they don't have the time to learn it or execute it correctly. So one thing is, you always have a lot of options when you get a home mortgage, Ian, and you need to choose the best option. And Gabe Winslow, that's your pitch man. And there's no one coming. There's no run force. You got to get the ball out to him in space and let him work. And you can do that by calling him at 832-557-1095. Gabe is really good at what he does. Over 20 years in the industry. He's got a law degree, former National Merit Scholar at the University of Texas. He's a diehard like the rest of us. And put that keen mind to work on your behalf, whether you're buying a new home or whether you're looking at a refi when interest rates get a little more favorable. Contact Gabe now. Get him on your list. He's not going to bother you with a bunch of nonsense. And basically say, hey, I'm looking to refi. Tell me when to strike when the iron is hot. Gabe will tell you that moment. Get everything, get ready to execute, and you'll score a touchdown with Mr. Winslow. 832-557-1095. All right. Anything with respect to, do we have any clips or anything we want to show that illustrate this principle?
Let's show those clips, Connor. If you could pull up my examples from Vanderbilt's season. So this first one.
Get them big as possible.
Embiggen.
There you go. Advertisement.
Perfect.
Here it is.
This first play is something like what I drew up. And there is no one in the B gap. They try to play contain, and first of all, there's no defensive lineman in the B gap. So playing contain with that defensive end was an iffy strategy.
Did you also see how the linebacker, who was unblocked,
could
have made that play for a 1-yard gain?
Yes.
And he was so confused, he didn't really have an assignment. So he stood there, which is very common in option football. Believe me, I've never seen people torn up in like a high school film study session like when you play an option team. Because if you don't know your assignment, you just stand there and they run past you.
So I think Kentucky, they actually played Vanderbilt pretty decently overall.
They did.
But they had a lot of trouble, and I think they were trying to confuse. They acted like they were playing Army, where they were trying to constantly move people to create confusion about who to block and who not to block. And a lot of times they just confuse their own guys.
A general rule for the option is, if you're trying to sow confusion through your alignments and constantly shifting who's got what responsibility, you will confuse your defense before you confuse them if they're competent. And one example, if you want to go watch some BYU Texas tape with Manny Diaz running stunts, and BYU just saying, we're going to turn your stunts against you and rush for 973,000 yards.
Well, you got to bring up.
Sorry, Ian. We got any more?
All right, let's go to this next one. I think this next one might be even more clear cut.
Yes,
this one is Ball State. All right, before the snap, they have a defensive end who could be a B gap player at the top, and then a stand-up edge. And if they're reading that stand-up edge, which I think they are, but it's actually been a minute since I looked at this, he needs to contain the ball inside for the linebacker. Go ahead and run it.
Look at that safety back there, right? So you can see the two corners up on top that's in twins. That safety right in the middle field. That's not the safety. That safety right there. Watch it. Watch this play. Who do I have?
The edge, the edge, and the linebacker, and maybe the safety all played contain.
Yes.
That's
These guys don't know their responsibilities, Ian. That's the point of this play.
yes. That's
Go back
both
and play it again, and just is there any? We can't slow it because it's a GIF, but play it again, Connor. I want you to watch the line push, not the lineman, but the push. They double one guy and get push. All their other linemen don't really block anyone and stand around. Did the pulling guard do anything there? Kind of screened a guy. So this is not like, oh, we're getting destroyed up front. They had a double team that worked, which is what a double team's supposed to do. And then they had 3 viable tacklers play side. And they all kind of were like, who's got, I don't know.
That's what happens.
It's what happens.
The option, I mean, if you have simple rules and you can dictate what the offense does, like we said. You can choose their option for you. You can choose their option for them. But teams struggle with that. They either try to get cute and they confuse their own players, or they just botch the rules and give away yards.
Well, even this is a generational thing, Ian, because if you grew up playing Texas high school football and you're of a certain age, you face the option every other week at least. And you just sort of had understood the rules. They were ingrained in you. Even if you played defensive end or outside linebacker, you knew who had the pitchman, even though that wasn't your guy. Like, you just understood. And the thing is, this is such foreign stuff for most football players nowadays in spread-focused high school offenses or straightforward, downhill run schemes, inside zone, outside zone, that it's a change up and you end up thinking too much. And then when you're thinking, you're paralyzed. And that's not good to be on defense.
Gary Patterson, I heard him at a Big 12 Media Day say that he actually still would begin every fall camp with half-line option drills. And he's like, he believed, the RPO stuff is actually very similar to the option.
Yeah.
When the throws get downfield, it gets different, but the basic inside zone, quarterback keeper, bubble screen stuff is basically just spread out option. And so he's like, we are not ever going to lose our institutional knowledge of defending the option. We start there, and then I explain how that marries to defending other things. But
well, that's it. I think that's smart because it teaches larger principles of assignment football and discipline that actually has carried over to the passing game. And Ian, that is the transition I want to make now.
Perfect.
Because my assertion is that we just spent 22 minutes talking about the option in their run game.
Really 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. We had a little chat before this. But Vanderbilt uses this to lull you. Lull, not LOL. And what they're very effective in doing is grinding the ball, and then throwing a very efficient throw. And that's where they do their damage. Vanderbilt averages 4 yards a carry, 160 rushing yards a game. They throw for over 200 yards a game at 9 yards per attempt. And if you're at any level of football, if you're throwing the ball at 9 yards per attempt with 11 touchdowns and only 1 interception, by the way, that's where the real damage is happening, Ian. So that brings up this part, which I think is important. Cornerback control. If you want to have simplicity in your assignments, man up your cornerbacks on their receivers and say, you have no pitch responsibility. You have no force responsibility. On every play, you will cover these guys like glue and make sure they don't sneak past you because you're worried about, in this formation, I've got pitch guy. By all means, add yourself to the run defense when the pitch happens and they cross the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage. But until then, as long as Diego Bahavia is behind the line of scrimmage, and I don't care if he's running towards you or away from you, understand that at any moment, he can take 2 hops back and throw the ball. And if you've taken a step forward because you're watching the backfield, and your wide receiver is running free, you've just given up a cheap touchdown. that Vanderbilt is not going to otherwise score going 20 plays for 80 yards against the Texas defense. Is that fair?
100%.
So that is another way to simplify your assignments. Tell your cornerbacks, you've got these wide receivers. And if you've told that to your secondary, is there any confusion from your safeties ever who's got the force?
No.
There shouldn't be, ever. There should never be an alignment where they think, oh, the cornerback has the force here because they're in trips and they motion to go. No. The minute your defense starts doing that, no matter how smart and experienced they are, you're done, in my opinion. So I think this is a very important aspect. And you might say, Paul, Eli Stowers, their tight end, he's the guy they want to throw the ball to. Why are you talking about cornerback control? What do you think, Ian?
I don't know where you're going with this. I know what my answer is for Stowers, but I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, I want your answer for Stowers. That's the point.
I think I would also play man coverage on him.
Agreed.
With Jelani McDonald. Because Jelani McDonald is being forced into starting this game because of injuries to Makuba and Derek Williams. And the easiest way to just, again, maintain same simplicity in this game is to play Taft consistently as like the post player. And Taft is smart enough to where he can know when he needs to play the pass and when he can kind of sneak up and just be a ninth guy in the box or whatever. But just have Jelani McDonald shadow Stowers. And if Stowers is blocking, then take on the block and force the ball inside. And if Stowers is running a route, you're covering him. And it's very simple for him.
I think he's also a physical match. So Stowers is the classic tight end who is too fast for your big guys, like linebackers, and he's too tall, long, and physical for your DBs. Jelani McDonald is a big dude who can run. And their tight end has a tendency to get lost in that offense, as typically they do in option offenses. Classic Nebraska used to throw to their tight ends like once a game, and it always went for 70 yards, right? Because he would literally just run free as you're worried about Scott Frost on the midline option. So that, I think, is a very important thing. And the other thing is if you completely eliminate the outside receivers as an option, Diego Pavia literally has a shovel pass to the running back or something to Stowers every play. And I think that's something that you can focus on with your other coverage players and take away and recognize and then start to make plays on the ball. Because ultimately, that efficient passing game is what's powering this Vanderbilt offense. The run game is the way that enables it, if that makes sense.
The run game keeps the trains on time.
Yes.
But the passing game is how they score. I think you could play also this game in quarters and have the safeties play like one of them's going to be on the tight end and one of them's going to be on the slot or the second tight end, and then play them shallow and flat-footed and just let them stand still at the snap and see what's happening, and then close on it, whether it's covering the tight end or running the alley on the option or whatever. Texas could probably do that and get away with it, but for the reasons we already said, I think I would just play single high man and let Jelani shadow the tight end.
Yeah, and the other beauty of single high man is you can dedicate extra bodies to the box. And those two corners understand, hey, I've got a deep safety on covering the post.
Yeah.
And these two Vanderbilt receivers are pretty limited. They catch the ball when they're open. And if you just take that away, it's a threat that you remove from their offense that just makes it kind of turn into a grind factory. And I just don't think that's a successful offensive plan for Texas over 4 quarters.
You know what's funny is that we spent the deep dive discussing this. Probably Texas is going to do a good job and they'll stop this offense, because I think drawing up a disciplined reactive defense is definitely within PK's wheelhouse, right? And then after the game, we're just going to end up talking about the quarterbacks. But hopefully everyone has learned a lot today about the option. And if it does go terribly wrong, Hopefully they know why. And
You will know why.
This episode was clear.
And beyond the Vanderbilt runner going for 11 yards, look for Texas players, if things are going wrong, who are unblocked, standing there uncertain. That's a telltale sign that the option D has not been fully installed or fully understood. And then we could do another half hour on the offense and what Vanderbilt's going to do on defense. Quick 10 seconds on that, Ian, for maybe both of us. Vanderbilt doesn't have a very good defense. They rely on their offense to control the ball. They're going to show us a lot of looks, and they're going to try to contain the ball and force us to make decisions and make, frankly, easy throws and run the ball. And if we can do that, I think we'll have a lot of success. What do you think?
If I were them, I would make Quinn prove he can throw down the field and step up in the pocket. I would look.
I don't know if they trust their corners enough for that, but we'll see.
Yeah, maybe you just play off. I would want to do like 2022 TCU and be aggressive and make him prove he can beat you down the field. You're right. That's pretty risky, and that's probably not what they're going to do because they don't want to get in a 14-0 hole. But I mean, they got to at least be thinking about it.
I got to think that they're going to save that for some key downs, 3rd and long, right?
Yeah, if they can get there.
If they can get there.
Because I don't know if they're going to cover Texas's little dink and dunk game to the tight end and running backs as well as Georgia did.
Yeah, well, they don't have the personnel that Georgia has. Or, frankly, Smart did an amazing coaching job as well. So this has been the deep dive. Hope you learned a little bit about the halfback dive and the quarterback keeper and the option pitch and a couple of the rules that might keep this simple for the Texas defense so they can bring superior athleticism to bear. I'm Paul Wadlington. That's Ian Boyd. Thanks for joining us, and hook 'em horns.